Namaste, this is Aditya and welcome to Shankar Tech channel. In this video, I am going to take a use case and show how exactly we can implement AEM Headless using GraphQL. My friend Akash has put in some effort in creating the code also for this, so he will share and explain that code with you. If you are liking the videos which we are doing, please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Let's get started.
So now let's try to understand the implementation of this headless AEM headless through some example. Okay, so this is the use case which we have come up with. Okay, this is the AEM system, let's say, and in this AEM system we have the sales related FAQs and service related FAQs. Now our use case is that we should be able to show these FAQs as part of our website also, and same FAQs we will have to show as part of the mobile app also. So this mobile app is a native mobile app which is coded as part of this Android and iOS systems. It is a native mobile app basically. Okay, so we will have to query this API, query these FAQs through APIs and get the data. Okay, that is how this works. And this components and a web system works through our normal AEM components. Okay, so the idea is to have a centralized location where we store all the FAQ content. And once this FAQ content is updated in one central location, that update has to be reflected both in the website also and in the mobile app also. So this is the typical use case wherein we go for the headless implementations. Okay, so now for this we are going with a pure headless implementation, which means to say that we will create the content fragments, and using the GraphQL, we will query the content and get it as a JSON and render it in the mobile. So now let us first try to understand this mobile implementation flow. Okay, so now these are the steps which are involved in creating the mobile implementation. Okay, so first what we need to do is we need to create one FAQ content fragment model. Okay, so this is the first step. Okay, in the model we will create some fields which like question and answer and other things which will contain the data. Okay, so this is the content fragment model which we need to create, and based on this content fragment model we'll create content fragments. So let's say we have created service related FAQ content fragments, and using the same model we can also create sales related FAQ content fragments. But we need to distinguish somehow from service related FAQs to sales related FAQs, right? So for that distinction, what we use is we use something called as AEM tags. Okay, so all the service related FAQ content fragments, we will tag it with service related tag, and sales related FAQ content fragments, we'll tag it with sales related tag. Okay, so then on top of this, we have the out of the box GraphQL layer. So this GraphQL layer, using this GraphQL layer, we can use the GraphQL query and we will be able to hit these or get these content fragments. Whatever content fragments we have created here, we can get this. So in the query, if I want to get the service related FAQ content fragments, then I will pass the service related tag, and this GraphQL query will hit the content fragments. It will filter for the content fragments related to that particular tag which I am passing, and then it will return the content to me in a JSON format, and that content will be consumed by our mobile app. So this is how the entire flow works. Now my friend Akash will show you how exactly this is working in AEM. Yeah, Akash, now you can share your screen. Okay, so first he will show you how he has created content fragment model. Okay, so Akash, once you can show how you navigated to this content fragment model path.
Okay, so from Adobe Experience Manager and in general, we can see this section here, content fragment models. And inside this one, my model is inside this FAQ folder. So, and this is the model.
Yeah, now you can open the model and show how you created the fields, Akash.
Okay. So these are few fields that I have added, and we can see on the right side, like I have used single line text for this question,
Okay.
and we have to give the property name here, the name which we are going to use. Then similarly, I have added the answer. For answer, I used text area. This is checkbox I have added, like top FAQ. If you want to give a priority of this particular content fragment which you will create with the high priority, so that it should be ordered at the top, then we can select it. And the last field, the tag one.
Yeah. So to tag, you created the tags, right? To tag the content fragment as a sales or service, you created the
Yeah,
tags also.
yeah,
So
this is the tag
this
configuration.
tags you just dragged and dropped down to the left, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
and
Good.
given.
Okay. Now you can show how you created content fragments based on this model.
Okay. So now to create a content fragments, I navigated to assets, files. So here I have created two folders, sales and services ones.
Okay.
So inside sales, I'm creating content fragments, and with the tag sales. So to create one, so these are the few content fragments that I have created. So to create a new one, we have to select content fragment, FAQ.
So you will first click on the create button and select which FAQ, like which model, based on which model you have to create the content fragment. And then a screen like this will appear, right? Wherein you
Yeah.
can enter what is the question, what is the answer. Yeah, you can enter one and show.
Okay. So I'm just giving some random question here.
Mhm.
And from here we can select tag.
Yeah.
So under FAQ, I have created these two tags. So I'm selecting sales one for this one.
Mhm.
And if you want to make this as a top FAQ, we can just check this. So let me
Mhm.
check this one as well.
Sure.
Save and close. So this is how we have created a new content fragment now using the FAQ
Okay. Can you
content
show?
fragment model.
Yeah. Can you show the services also, how you tagged it with service?
So similarly, I just created one folder, services, and under that, again same process, created content fragment with the same model. Just
Mhm.
that I have given some different tag, FAQ colon services for that one, and by this way we can just distinguish between the sales and services content fragments.
Right. Yeah. So
Uh,
now, Akash, you can show how you have written the GraphQL query.
okay. So to go to this particular GraphQL editor, if you hit with this particular URL /am/graphql.html, you can see this screen. So this is the GraphQL editor that has been provided with the Adobe Experience Manager. Now, after coming to this one, we have to select our endpoint. So we have created our endpoint. FAQ related with the name FAQ, and we have to select that one. So I'm selecting this FAQ endpoint. And how we have created this endpoint is, to create the endpoint we have to go to the mm, um, again Adobe Experience Manager tools, and here in the GraphQL. So if we go here, so we can see that this is the endpoint that we have created, and we are going to select the same endpoint for our queries.
Yeah.
So
So
from
creating
here,
this endpoint, I have already done a video. I leave the
oh,
description, the link in the description, Anyone who wants to check how exactly to create in detail, you can check that video. Yeah, go ahead, Akash.
Okay. So now this is one query which I have created. So to create a new query, you can see here persisted queries and a plus section, plus button. If you just click on that one, you will get here you can write your query, and once you save it, so this query gets saved as a persistent query. So I have written one query here which accepts tag as a parameter, and I'm passing it as a on the below section. You can see that there's a query variable. So where I'm passing this particular uh, FAQ colon sales tags. This is a tag which we have created, right? So that tag as a parameter I'm passing to this query, and I'm just saving it. Once I save it, you can see that under the GraphQL persistent queries here in CRX, this query gets saved. So
Okay.
and
Yeah, one
the same
second.
query.
If you go back to that GraphQL again, GraphQL endpoint. Yeah, so this how to write these GraphQL queries I have already covered in another video. Again, I'll leave the link in the description box. You can check that out. And here, what Akash is saying is that query variables, whatever we are saying, so that will be accepted as an input to the query. So in the line number 29, he has the input as $tag, right? So whatever in the query variables below the tag he is passing, that will go as a parameter into that 29 line. Okay, and based on that, that if you see that 30 line in the expression and the value, you have the $tag, right? So whatever tag we are passing in the query variables, which is that FAQ colon sales, will ultimately come into that 30 line, right? And then it will, this query will get executed. Okay, so how to write this query? You can see that other video which I am giving in the description box. So apart from that, what we need to do is we need to save this query as a persisted query. Okay, so now what is this persisted query? Okay, so this query as is also you can give to your mobile team, and you can ask them to run this query directly. Okay, you could do that also. So similarly, as we are doing, they can hit the endpoint, which is this FAQ endpoint, and then they can pass this entire query from the mobile app and they can run it. Okay, but the only problem there is these queries are executed dynamically, which means to say that always whenever you run this query from the mobile app, it will hit the publish instance. Okay, and it will run through all the queries, get the content fragments and show it to you. Okay, which will lead to a significant performance impact. Okay, so to avoid that performance impact, what we'll do is we'll create a persisted query. Okay, which means to say that whatever query we have written here, we will save this in our CRXDE. Okay, we will not give the same query to the mobile team, but this query we will save it in our CRXDE, and we will just give a REST API to the mobile team, and they can hit the REST API and they can get the GraphQL response. By doing this, what we can do is we can cache the response of this GraphQL query in a dispatcher level, at the dispatcher level. So since these queries are being cached, what will happen is it will significantly reduce the performance impact. Okay, so if you have a case wherein you have a requirement to do a dynamic queries, then you can use the direct GraphQL query and hit and you can ask your mobile team to pass that query directly. That is one option you have. And another option where there is no dynamic thing required, and if you want to cache instead to avoid the performance impact, then you need to go for persisted query option. So what Akash is telling is, to create the persisted query, you need to click a plus icon here, and then you have to give the name like FAQ tag query, and then if you save it, then this query will get saved in the CRXDE. So where will it get saved? Now Akash will show you. it will get saved in CRX. And if you see here in the conf folder, under the settings, we have something called as GraphQL node. And in that GraphQL node, there will be a node created which is called as persisted query. And under that, whatever query name we are giving there to save, with the same name, it gets saved here. And if you go to the JCR content under this, so here is in the line number 2, you have JCR data, right? There you have something called as view. So if you click that view, whatever query we have created, you can save that also as a file here. Okay. So that query is getting stored here into a file. Okay. In the CRXDE as a file, which you are seeing at a line number 2 as JCR data. Okay. So that is how the persisted query will get saved. Okay, so now what we need to do now is, from the mobile app, we need to hit an endpoint, okay, which will execute this persisted query for us, which is this FAQ tag query. This persisted query, it has to execute and give us the result. Okay, so now Akash will show us executing it from IDE. Okay, so to execute it from IDE, you need to click on that plus play button. Then it will execute from IDE, and on the right hand side, you can see the response, right? So the same response you need to get when you hit it through the Postman also. Now Akash, you can show how to hit it from Postman.
Yeah. So to hit it from the Postman, we have to just we have to copy the endpoint. So you can see see these 3 dots here beside this query name. So we just have to do this copy URL, and I'm going to the Postman. So now you can see that after hitting that endpoint, we are getting the data. So this is our endpoint which we copied, and after this semicolon, this is our variable that we are passing, tag variable, like the tag FAQ colon sales. This is the tag which I'm passing, and I'm getting all the content fragments which are tagged with this particular FAQ colon sales tag. If I
Right.
just change this one with the, like, let's say services one. So we can say that now we are getting the results with this particular tag.
Right. So this, if you observe this API endpoint, we have /GraphQL and execute.json, right? So this is the out-of-the-box endpoint. AEM gives us an out-of-the-box endpoint to execute any of the persisted queries which we have. Okay, so this is the out-of-the-box endpoint, and this is a REST API. This is not a GraphQL API. Okay, so this REST API, we can give it to the mobile team, and just as we are hitting it from the Postman, mobile team can do a REST call to AEM using this endpoint, and they can get the response too. And as Akash told, you can just put the semicolon in the end, and you can pass the parameter also, whatever you have to pass. Okay, but we need to note that this is a REST endpoint, and if you have to use the GraphQL endpoint directly, that is a different endpoint. Okay, and different, and you have to pass the query also. You can show the GraphQL endpoint also once, Akash. In that you have created one endpoint, right? You can show that endpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, here GraphQL endpoint.
Okay.
So this endpoint is there. So this is the endpoint you need to hit if you want to directly send the query and execute the query. Okay, this will be a direct GraphQL endpoint, but the other one is a REST API. Okay, based on whatever your requirement is, you can use the respective API. Okay, yeah. So now, till now, we have shown how you can execute, how you can implement headless implementation in mobile app. Now we will show you how to use the same FAQs to implement a component. Okay, let me share my screen now. Okay, so now we'll see the web implementation. Here also we are going with a pure headless content fragments and GraphQL. So our content base is same. We just want to reuse the same content and create the component out of it also. Okay, let's see the steps for this. So first what you need to do is you need to develop a component like an FAQ component, and from that component slightly code you need to call a sling model. Okay, and on the sling model you will inject the OSGA service. Okay, and this from this OSGA service you will do an API call to the REST API, whatever we have seen the REST API which Akash called from the Postman, right? The same API you will call it to the OSGA service also, and then you will get the GraphQL response, uh, uh, and that response you will send it back to the sling model, and from the sling model you will send it back to the AEM component, and that data you will render it in the UI. Yeah, now Akash will show you the AEM component code first, how he has done and how he has called the sling model.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. So this is our FAQ component, which we have created. We are just passing the title and the tag here. So whatever the tag we will provide, like currently I have provided FAQ colon services done, and we can see that the services related FAQs are showing up here. If I just do view as published, then in the accordion format, these are like the five FAQs are coming up with the question and the answer.
Right. So you created a component and you have given the ability for the authors to choose the tag, right? So
Yeah,
now you are showing the service related FAQs. But
yeah,
similarly on the sales page, if they want to show the sales related FAQs, on the dialog box, they can choose the sales related tag, right? And on the same component, they can choose the sales related tag, and then sales related FAQs will show up, right?
yes,
Okay. And you have created some CSS and JS to render it like a accordion component, right?
yeah.
Okay. So now you can show the code, sightly code for this model.
Okay. So inside the CRXD, we can see that the this is our component FAQ1, having a dialog, and this is our FAQ.html. So from here we are calling our using data slide use.model. Like this is our model FAQ. I'm calling that one, and I'm returning a list from that model. And here I'm just iterating that one, and this particular section is getting iterated for every question and answer. So this is our question and this is our answer. So to see this list, I just go to the this particular sling model FAQ1.
No, wait 1 second. We will analyze this code only. So here you are calling that model on the line number 7, and then in the line number 10, you are doing model dot and get FAQ list, right?
Yeah.
So this
Yes.
get FAQ list is a method which you have defined in the model, which will return you the list of FAQs and based on the tag, right? So the tag you have given it in the dialog box. Okay, so based on the tag, you will receive the list of FAQs in a variable, and that list you are looping through here using data slide list, right? And you are showing what is the question and what is the answer here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, now you can show the model, sling model.
Okay. So this is our sling model, FAQ ample, which is implementing this interface. I have given it the FAQ with the name get FAQ list. And using the value map value annotation, inject annotation, I'm getting the tag field. This is the field which author is authoring the tag. Either it is a sales tag or a service tag. So we are getting that in this annotation. in this particular variable tag field one. And so when we are doing here FAQ list model dot get FAQ list, so this particular method, like this get FAQ list gets called, and inside this one we are calling. So here whatever the to call the GraphQL service endpoint, we have created one service, GraphQL service. So just calling a method of that GraphQL service, and I'm using @OSJ service annotation for the same. So this is our service, GraphQL service, and this is our GraphQL endpoint. So how I got this endpoint is the same way, like we just saw when we go to the particular our editor, GraphQL editor. From the here I'm just copying this URL. So this is my endpoint, which I will call this, and this particular query, right? We saw when we saved this query, it got saved into the persistent queries section. So same, I'm keeping it in my IDE. Um, in the persistent queries section, so it will get uh, e- so here inside this FAQ tag query, you can see that this query is already there. So in the GraphQL service IMPL, this variable is nothing but the tag variable which we want to pass. So we using @value map value, we saw that we are getting that author tag. So I'm just getting that one, and um, just mapping it as a variable.
Yeah, you can
Um,
go to that model again once. You can go to
yeah,
that model, and in this method in line number 32, he is passing this tag field, right, as a
yeah,
variable into that get GraphQL data. He is passing this tag field, and that is the tag field he is getting it in the implementation of that service. Now you can go to the implementation, Akash.
yeah.
Yeah, here in the implementation on line number 29, he is getting the tag field, and he is just creating the input parameter to pass to the query. So sorry, the GraphQL endpoint, right?
Yeah. And we are using HTTP post for the same, to call the GraphQL endpoint from our OSGI service. This is GraphQL service. As currently we are using author, we are using this query on the author instance. So we need to provide the credentials. So I'm just using basic credential provider for the same, and passing the username password for the same for the time being, as we are using on the 4502 author instance. Also here we are just setting the header, and so the variable which we have created here to pass it to the query for the tag one, I'm just setting it into the string entity, and I'm just setting that entity to the HTTP post method which we have created. Now, after executing this particular HTTP post, whatever the response we will get, we will extract it. We will extract the actual content using the HTTP entity here. So the object which you have created, response entity. So on line number 56, we can see that there's a string, response string, which is equal to like entity utis dot toString. So this is the actual response which we have got from this query. It will get stored within this response string variable. So in the JSON format. But now, as we want it in the as a JSON object, so what we will do is we are using object mapper here, and on the line number 62, so this FAQ response class which you are seeing, right? So basically we have created Pojo classes here using JSON schema to Pojo. Under this generated.faq, I have created one package, and under that I have put all of this mm, um, all of these Pojo classes from the JSON response which we have got. And so whatever the response we'll get it in the FAQ response
Yeah, you can open
class.
that FAQ response
Yeah,
Pojo class once, Akash.
yeah,
Yeah, so this is a Pojo class, wherein like if you go to the GraphQL IDE back, Akash, once. So this is the response which we are getting in the JSON. So this JSON response, we will have to convert it into the Java beans. Okay, so that conversion is what Akash is showing as a Pojo class. Now you can go back to the code of that Pojo class. And here on line number 17, we have given @generated JSON schema to Pojo, right? So that is the annotation which we use. And we have given that JSON property, data, and all this. So whatever we will do the one-to-one mapping between that JSON attributes to these Pojo variables, so that whenever you pass this JSON to this Pojo, then all that attributes will automatically get converted into these bean variables. They just get mapped into these bean variables. Okay, so that is the whole syntax here, which is happening. Yeah, now you can go back to the implementation.
So I'm just getting it. We finally we are going to get the list of item, and this what are these list of item is. If I just go to this item Pojo, we can see that we are going to have the final question answer, if it is a top FAQ or not, and the tag. And so we are going to return the list of items from our OSJ service on our to the Sling model, and ultimately on our STL in
Yeah.
for our
Now you
FAQ.
can once again go to that GraphQL IDE, Akash.
Yeah.
So if we see here, in the right hand side, inside the items, we have question, answer, top FAQ, and tag, right? These parameters. So these parameters, if we see, this items is an array, right? So, and inside that array, we have individual elements, which are question, answer, top FAQ, and tag. So he created one items Pojo to store this question, answer, top FAQ, and tag. Then he created a list of items. So now you can go back to that code once again. So this is the items Pojo. Go to that items.java. So this is the items Pojo, where he has the beans to store question, answer, top FAQ, and tag. And then if you go back to that GraphQL service implementation, so he has created in line number 66 list of items, FAQ list. So again, that item is a Pojo class. He is creating a list of it, and then he is from that FAQ response, which is that JSON which we have seen in the GraphQL IDE. He is getting the items, and then he is mapping it to this FAQ list. So that's how this JSON which we have seen in the FAQ list, GraphQL IDE, gets converted to this FAQ list. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and this line number 67. Finally, once we got the list of items, right? So whichever is having every item is having a top FAQ field, right? So we are just using comparator. We are comparing it with I mean, we are just finally returning a sorted one, as in the one which having the get top FAQ field as a boolean true value will have the high priority, like it will be on the top of the list.
Okay.
Now,
So now once you got that, if you go back to that IMPL, so once you get this FAQ list finalized, in line number 68, you are returning that list,
yeah,
which will go back to your Sling model, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it will come
here
to
we
the
are.
Sling model and it will get returned from here. And this get FAQ list, you are calling it from your Sightly code, right?
Yeah.
You can show that
So
code.
from here, like model.get FAQ
Yeah.
list.
Yeah, now he is using this data slide list and he is looping through that list and showing the question and answer here. And now you can show it on the component, how it is rendering.
Yeah. So this is how it is rendering on the component now, like the.
Okay. So now we have shown how to do the implementation both in mobile and web. Okay, so now if you go back to that GraphQL IDE, Akash.
Yeah.
So if you see the response here, we have like data colon and all this as a JSON, right? So in some cases, we might have to do the data transformation here to show it in a more readable format. You cannot just consume this response directly from the GraphQL IDE. In that case, what you need to do is you need to write your own servlet. Okay, just as he is calling, if you go back to your model, Akash.
Yes.
Yeah, in the model here we are injecting the GraphQL service, right? This GraphQL service is calling that out of the box API, right? So similarly, what we need to do is we need to create a servlet which injects this same service, which will get the response as you have shown in the GraphQL IDE. So that IDE response, you'll get it into the servlet, and whatever data transformation you have to do, you can do it in the servlet and send it. Okay, so apart from like if you go to the Postman, Akash, so here we are directly calling that out of the box API, and the response we are getting is how we have shown it in the GraphQL IDE, right? In some cases, this response is very raw. In some cases, you might have to do the data transformation for suitability and performance or any other considerations, right? In that case, what we need to do is we need to write our own servlet, which calls this out-of-the-box API, which Akash is showing in the Postman URL here, which that servlet will do an internal call to this API again, gets the response, and in the servlet you will have to do the data transformations, and then you will have to send the response. Okay, in that case, if the mobile team wants the transformed data instead of this raw data, that part you can handle it in the servlet. Okay, so that one more layer you can add it according to the project needs. Okay, and one more thing we need to consider while going for the headless is, if you go to the content fragments, Akash, whatever you have created. Yeah, so here he has created two folders for sales and surveys, and he has created the content fragments here, right? So now if these sales and service fragments are, let's say, 10 or 20 FAQs are there, then it is manageable, right? But if it is going beyond 100 or 500 FAQs, then it will, for an author, it will be really hard to manage. Like for example, from those 500 FAQs, if he has to find what are the top FAQs, whatever he has checked, if he has to find that, then he has to really struggle to identify that, right? So we have to consider the authorability also in mind while we are going for the headless approach. Okay, so we will have to see, we'll have to understand that this most of the things are out of the box here, like GraphQL API and everything. Those advantages you have, but you author will not have a nice interface wherein he can just open the dialog box or see the customized UI to identify what is the top FAQs and all will not be there. Okay, so you will have to always weigh on authorability versus what is the out of the box features, and accordingly you will have to take a decision whether you have to go for the pure headless situations or not. Okay, and another scenario is headless scenarios are more useful when there is no requirement to have the design or the order. Like for example, if you have an article, right? In article, there might be a banner component, and you might have some body image and all those things, right? And in that case, the banner component might have like the sequence or order in which these components are getting added are important, right? First, you will have the banner component, then the body component. So if you have that sequence coming up, or if there are any design considerations like image has to come left and the content has to come right, right? So if those things are coming into picture, then in those scenarios you should not opt for the headless scenario. So generally, whenever you are going for the articles, it is not recommended to go for a pure headless scenario. So instead of that, in these scenarios, what we'll have to do is we'll have to go for a experience fragment approach, and through content APIs, you will have to write your own servlet to expose those as a content APIs. Okay, you will have to have a fixed article template, and you will have to parse that article template in the servlet, and then you will have to expose it as an API. Okay, so how do we do it? We'll take up in our next videos. Yeah, that's it for today. Jai Hind.